Hello, everyone. Just waiting for a few more people to get into the chat. We'll get started. I can't see the chat room. We're just working some kinks out here. Yeah. Down there. But it doesn't show many people on there. I don't have any kind of clue. It says 0 right here. That'd be better if we just left it like that. Because if you go full screen, it's just gonna. Yeah. Dogman time. Pork and beans. Well, not necessarily Dogman time. Pretty much anything weird and unusual. But I'll start off with that. That's actually something I was going to talk about. I'm a Dogman researcher. I do research on Dogman, but I also research Sasquatch sightings, and I do anything weird, paranormal, anything out of the realm of what's normal. People have asked me, well, why is your show called Paranormal Round Table, yet you're heavily cryptid oriented, but we do a lot of ghost stuff too, because there seems to be this notion that everything that's paranormal is ghost related. I don't look at that, let it that way. I've always said that, and I'm going to repeat that ghosts, cryptids, UFOs, they're all in the realm of like what's weird and unusual, and we can't put our finger on exactly what it is. I deal with researchers and authors from every field. I was talking to a UFO researcher the other day, and we talked and we chopped it up, and he was talking about his theories and stuff. And he consulted me on the mantis encounters that I had gotten that we are going to be doing a show about soon. And so that's one thing that we were talking about. So if anybody wants to send me a story, I'm a little backed up right now, but I am definitely down to try to get as many stories as I can. January is a busy month for me, but I'm still going to be doing the show as much as possible. So I will be conducting interviews probably all week. I've got a few lined up, but I've got some slots available if anybody wants to send me their story so I can try to get to you. I just, busy being the person that primarily does the interviews, in our group. I've recruited her to start helping with the interviewing, and I got Anthony and Zane is going to be co-hosting a little more frequently now too. Tony's still involved. He still runs Paranormal Encounters. If you have something that you can't reach me, you can reach out to him, try to talk to him through Messenger. I've had some people saying, well, we can't get a hold of him when we try to reach out to him. I'll talk to him about that. But anybody that needs to get a hold of us with a story, definitely let me know. Don't be shy. If you have to pester me. I don't mind. Just keep. People are always like, oh, I don't want to bother you. Keep sending it. I mean, until I pay attention to it, because honestly, I'm overwhelmed with stories. But if you have a good story, I want to get to it. I spend 3 or 4 hours a day just trying to pour through stories, reading, and in between what I do in my regular job and the meetings and the things that I have to do. And if I get a moment to just, even if I'm just sitting in a waiting room or a doctor's office, I'm going to sit there and I'm going to, go over through stories. And so I'm trying to get to everybody as quickly as possible. There are a few things I wanted to talk about. Let me get my trusty notes out here real quick. See what I got going on here. I posted something on my Facebook the other day. It was Miyamoto Musashi. It was a famous samurai in Japan, in feudal Japan, and one of the things that he said was, "Everything that you need is found from within." Now, several people have questioned me and said, "Well, what about God? What about religion, things like that?" And one of the things that I pointed out was that for me, the kingdom of God is found within. It's found within all of us because we have the life and spark breath of God within us. So the very Gnostic view that the kingdom of God is within you. It's not out in the world. You're not going to find it out there. So yes, everything is found from within. Everything you will need or you have to survive, it comes from within you. Even when you have a group of people who work and help and do things for you and with you, and you work and help them, it still starts from within you to seek those people out and to try to be, um, to try to make them help and be a part of what you're doing. You still have to start. It starts from within. It starts from you. You have to do that. The other thing I was going to talk about, we just recorded a show that's going to be coming out pretty soon. And it is about the Glimmer Man or Shimmer Man. So people see this shimmering, like glimmering type entity, and creatures. I don't know that look like they're being cloaked. We did a show about that. I recorded that with my nephews Zane and Anthony recently, but we haven't released it yet. But it should be releasing now that the shows are not as backed up. And we got that Ken Gerhard episode out that we had for a while, and we can start moving forward and getting a little more caught up. This coming Friday show will be a show that I did with my cousin, who spent a lot of time in Wyoming on the reservations, the Shoshone and Arapaho reservations, and so he will be coming on the show. We recorded this, I think, back in late summer or something, and there's going to be a two-parter with him. I'm also gearing up to do a bunch of Dogman interviews that I'm going to be releasing. Now, here's the thing with that. Somebody mentioned something about me doing Dogman interviews because that's kind of Vic Cundiff's thing. I'm not trying to step on anybody's toes. I love Vic. Everybody knows that. I don't have a problem with him or any of the other Dogman people out there. There's a lot of people trying to do Dogman right now. Most of them I don't think it's incorrect, but that's my opinion. But what I'm trying to do with these Dogman interviews is I'm going to be a lot more interactive. Whereas Vic kind of sits back and just lets people talk and talk. I want to ask a lot more questions, and I want to get a lot more focused on the nature of these things. And I'm willing to take anybody's encounters, whether you think it's purely physical, spiritual, doesn't matter, whatever you got. Vic's show is kind of geared more toward a physical. Somebody said that the other day about Wes Germer. I don't know Wes personally. I reached out to him a long time ago, and he kind of ignored me, so I just was like, whatever. No big loss. I didn't really care. I'm not bashing the guy. I know nothing about the guy. But people were asking me about doing a team up with him, whatever. Sure. I mean, I'll team up and work with anybody as long as they're a stand-up person. Don't seem to have an opinion. I don't really have an opinion about the guy one way or the other. He doesn't seem to be, fake or anything like that. I just, his show though, from what I've been told and from what I've been able to learn, is more geared toward there again, the flesh and blood. Whereas I'll cover both. And maybe that would put some people off on working with me. I just think that if you focus narrowly on one subject and you focus on one area of that subject, you're really doing yourself a disservice, and you're not getting to the bottom, the root of the problems or the issues, I should say, that come along with doing the research. Recently investigated a haunting, and there was a lot of other activity. Actually, I spoke about this on the phone with Ken Gerhard recently. He's a really good friend of mine, and we talk pretty regularly, and we were just talking and laughing and whatever, and it came up, about hauntings and things like that. And Ken is a very straightforward cryptozoologist, but he also has investigated a lot of weird stuff. And he was, we were talking about hauntings, and he was in on a tour or something, and he knows that stuff exists. And so we began to talk about it, and I said that there was a case, which I will be talking about at some point, but I got to do a lot more investigation with it, and maybe on location too. Not really too interested in going to these places where something could attach itself to me or to a member of my team. I'm not really big on going to these places and being like, hey, F you, demon, come out and blah, 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 and challenging things to, a paintball fight or whatever it is that these morons do on TV. Sometimes they do these things, and some of these ghost shows, they'll go out there and start talking trash, and somebody ends up getting scratched or something happens. But this investigation involved UFO activity, which is kind of where it started, and then it turned into poltergeist activity, and then they began to see a Sasquatch Bigfoot type creature. There was a reptilian thing that was in the barn. A lot of weird activity, and I was given this by another researcher that's like, I'm strictly a Bigfoot researcher. You want to take this, and I was like, sure. And I had no idea how vast and how deep it went. Think of like Skinwalker Ranch, but for not as long of a period of time, and not quite as vast. But it was a very, and I had, like I said, I had talked to Ken about it and asked him what he thought, because he's strictly, when it comes to cryptozoology, these things are animal type creatures like Bigfoot, So. The other thing I wanted to talk about, and this is ridiculous, it's crazy. It's not. This is not like paranormal or whatever, but I'm gonna keep getting asked about this if I don't actually say something about it. I'm talking like 20 different messages that came through about this. Okay, I'm just gonna throw it out there, and I'm gonna tell everybody what I got going on. Everybody has been asking me about the playoffs, the NFL, and I'm talking like 20 people have asked me what are my teams that I'm first of all, any Texas team I'm going to root for. Okay, just so you know. But after that, it's the Buccaneers. I like the Chiefs. I've never really been a Browns fan, but now that the Browns have actually done something this year, and I feel sorry for them because they've always been so bad. And Squid, one of my best friends in the world, I was talking to him yesterday and messaging him, and he's sad that Ohio State got blown out by Alabama, which is, I'm sick of Alabama. They're like a pro team. Year in, year out, they're always there. But the Browns have been they're like the poster child for futility in the NFL, and they actually managed to knock off the Steelers, which I thought would happen. I predicted that one because I didn't think the Steelers were as good as everybody said they were, and I saw them kind of cheat the Cowboys when they played, and I was like, well, there you go. It seems like every time they play, I said, something happens, and they'll play teams that I like, and it always seems like somehow they get the upper hand through the refs. But the Browns came out and just destroyed them, and so I like the Browns. They're going to be playing the Chiefs in Kansas City, which is not that big of a home field advantage because the COVID thing has knocked the fans out of the scenario, so it doesn't really matter. I think I like the Browns' chances. If the Chiefs kind of sleep on it, they could lose. But I really think that the Chiefs are too high powered, and Mahomes is always playing out of his head. So, Buccaneers and the Saints. That's in the NFC. Me being a Bucs fan, I'm hopeful. I want them to beat the Saints. I think Brady can do it, but I'm not holding my breath. And I'm thinking there's a good chance that the Saints will beat them for the third time this year. Also, We got the Ravens at the Bills. I can't stand the Ravens, there again, I kind of feel sorry for the Bills, and I hope the Bills beat them, and I think they will. But there again, the home field advantage is not not as big a deal. So up in Buffalo, you would have this rabid fan base that's not really going to be there, be a part of what's going on. So, but I think that they will be able to handle the Ravens. So my picks for that game is the Bills. I think the Chiefs will beat the Browns. So it will be the Bills and the Chiefs, or the Bills at the Chiefs for the AFC Championship game to decide who goes to the Super Bowl. Rams and the Packers, that's a hard one, and I'll tell you why. Because the league loves the Rams. Okay, the league absolutely loves the Rams, and they did everything they could to get them in the Super Bowl. I think it was the year before last, and even that blown call against New Orleans. I mean, that was just insane. But the Rams, I believe, have a chance against Green Bay because, like I said, there again, the home field advantage isn't what it is in a normal year. This is a COVID year, and but I think the Packers are going to have the edge just because I think that they're a better team. But the Rams have a good defensive line. They get after Rodgers. It could be a long day for the Packers, and the Rams could beat them. It's all a matter of which team does the league want to win because they like both of them. They always kind of seem to be fanboying for the Packers because it gives them a wholesome image of, oh, this small town owns this team, whatever. And so I think that that's going to be a hard one. Which team the league is going to throw the flags for? The Rams, they're in LA and they want that LA market, so they may just let them play. Who knows? That's a hard one. But if I had to give the edge to somebody, that is a complete toss-up. But I'm going to take the Pack, even though I don't think they're as good as everybody thinks they are. And unfortunately, like I said, I think the Saints will beat my Buccaneers, but I hope that the Buccaneers can win. I'd like to see the Bucs and the Packers in the NFC Championship game. The Bucs beat them and go to the Super Bowl and play the Chiefs, but I don't think that that's going to happen. So I'm looking at a Packers-Saints NFC Championship to decide who goes to the Super Bowl, and I'm looking at the Chiefs and the Bills to decide to go to the Super Bowl. The Chiefs will, I think, beat them, but the Bills have a shot. They have a chance. If they can get through the Ravens, they can beat the Bills. They can beat the Chiefs. So I'm looking at the Chiefs, and probably the Packers will be in the Super Bowl. And I'm hoping that that's not the case. But the Saints are tough too, so it could end up being the Saints. But those are my picks for the NFL. And like I said, the only reason I'm going over this is because I got a ton of messages asking me about it. And not all just from men either. I had some women asking me about it too. There's a female friend of mine that's a diehard Chiefs fan, and she was like, "What do you think our chances are?" And I'm like, "Well, they're pretty good." And then my buddy Big Jim, if you're out there, shout out to you. Their chances are pretty good. So, you want to pick a question for me?
There's someone who asked earlier if you got any stories of spontaneous combustion.
Yes, absolutely. I only have one story. Okay, actually, you know what? I'll take that back. I got two. I was given a story years ago when I was working security, oddly enough, at a haunted building. And we were talking about the ghost. This was a building that's on 6th Street downtown. And it was a bank building. And I'm going to tell you right now, it was the building that I got transferred to when I left the building, the one that me and Tony Duran were talking about being extremely haunted. That building was really bad, but this building wasn't quite as bad, but it did have some weird stuff happen, and I'll touch on that at some point. And the guards were kind of spooked. The good thing is you had two guards every night. It was a 2-man post, and so what ended up happening was there was a lady that worked there, and I believe she was on the sixth or seventh floor. She was always working late. And we were all up talking about ghosts one night because one of the patrol guys would come through there to do his rounds, and so there were 3 guards standing around, not doing their job, talking about the ghosts and hauntings. And this lady comes down, and she started talking about, yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff that goes on in this building. I've had that weird stuff. The elevator was weird. It would take you to weird floors and do, and then not let you get back on. It was weird. And we started talking about odd stuff, and I'll never forget, this was like in the mid 90s. She told me that her great aunt spontaneously combusted in the barn of their property. Like when she was a child, she was walking behind her 2 older siblings, and she saw flames. Literally, she witnessed this person burn up, and then it was filed as a kerosene lantern that was an antique lantern and which had nothing to do with the case. I mean, she was like, I don't even know where they got that from, but that's what they claimed had happened. She was carrying a lantern, and I was like, what is this, Little House on the Prairie? This was like, I mean, this happened back in the 70s, so it wasn't like, her great aunt, or this wasn't like, like I said, Walnut Grove, Little House on the Prairie. Why would she be carrying a kerosene lantern? I mean, it was just, but I guess the authorities didn't really know how to handle this. Happened in Arkansas. I believe it was Arkansas. And so yeah, and I spoke to her, and that property where she and her 2 siblings had been taken to live with the great aunt because the dad had died in a car crash, and the mother was cancer. She had cancer, and so they went to live with these great aunt and uncle who were actually not very kind, actually, which is another thing. They thought maybe that they had been involved somehow in causing this, and the oldest sibling was 14, and so they ruled against it and said that's probably not what happened, but they believe that she spontaneously combusted. This woman also told us, me and the 2 or 3 guards that worked on a regular basis, that she believed that as we talked to her over time, me in particular, and I wrote a lot of this down, when she was talking about it, because we would sit in the break room, and she told me that she believed that it was something evil, like satanic, because her great aunt was involved in witchcraft, and that maybe that was the devil coming home to roost, and it burned her up right before their eyes. She didn't get as a good look at it as the 2 siblings that were in front of her, but she actually witnessed it. So all that was left of this individual were her legs and part of the upper body. The middle section was completely gone, incinerated. And like I said, it was ruled as an accidental burning, which is bullcrap. So obviously, according to this individual. So that's an interesting story. And I have one other story. This happened to a group of friends that I know. They were up in a mountainous area in Colorado, and one of them, they had all been drinking really heavily, and one of them's shirt caught on fire and burned part of his body, and no one really knows how it happened. One individual was blamed supposedly for using some sort of incinerator. Is it called incinerator? What is it called when you use incendiary? Like, but like to lighter fluid or something was thrown on this person. But everyone in the attendants claimed that wasn't true. The guy stood up and like stretched, and then his jacket and arm caught on fire, and it burned part of his body. It wasn't 3rd-degree burns or anything like that, but he got it off, and it looked like the flame kind of shot out of his right side of his chest, according to these individuals that told me this story. And this was up in, oh my gosh, what is the place that your mom always likes to go up to in Colorado? It's up at the top. It's huge elevation up there. I can't remember the name. I could look it up, but that's the only other. And there's a little more to that story. I mean, I'll touch base more on it one day, but that's it's pretty crazy. I can't remember the name of the place. It's up above Leadville. I wish I could text my friend Anna Choate and find out, or Nathan Samora. They may know. But anyways, that's where that happened. And if I can get the name of the place where this took place, maybe you guys can at home can do some research and see if there's any more weird stuff that went on in that area. Maybe there's something to that because I never bothered to look into that. But I just remember that story, and I was kind of sitting on those thinking maybe I'll get some more. But most of the ones I've read about were like through articles that I'd read and books I've read and like Fate magazine, stuff like that. Got another question?
Ann Kozlowski said something along the lines of, do any other Dogman witnesses find themselves inundated with other supernatural encounters?
Why does Dogman?
Or is it just her? Because I guess that's her experience, and she wants to know if other Dogman witnesses also have like different experiences with the paranormal.
Okay. Well, I think that they all go hand in hand because I think that a lot of people that have Dogman encounters are they're like intuitive, or they have some sort of like they're experiencers. Let's put it that way. And maybe that's why it lends a lot of credence to the metaphysical nature of Dogman, which is another thing. Like I said, referring back to my friend Ken, we've talked, and then of course Vic, when we've talked off of the air, has agreed with some of my theories about those things, that these creatures are very possibly metaphysical in the way that they seem to go hand in hand with other supernatural events that take place around them. And I think that people that are so-called experiencers, which may be what I am. I don't know. I've had a lot of weird paranormal experiences. Haven't seen a lot of flesh and blood cryptids running around, but I've had a lot of weird paranormal experiences. And one of the things that I can tell you is that there is a high rate of if because a lot of these researchers, they only key in and focus on the Dogman. They ignore anything else that's going on the property. They ignore the poltergeist activity. They ignore anything that has to do with aliens, UFOs, anything like that. They just strictly go after the Dogman material, and they'll have you believe with their shoddy research that that's all that there is. It's just that. And I've seen it happen. And I've talked to a few people who basically told me, that they had such and so researcher. I'm not going to name his name, but he comes out there and he ignores everything that has anything to do with supernatural, and he keys in on this thing like it's a completely flesh and blood creature, and that he's got all this proof and stuff, and that there's other stuff going on, and he tends to completely ignore that. But he's not the only one that does that. There are multiple researchers that do that, and I don't agree with that. I think that's completely wrong. And I can tell you this, there does seem to be a connection between the Dogman phenomena and the supernatural. I can't tell you how many times I've been told, yeah, I've seen a Dogman, had this and that, but I also saw this, I saw that. It could go back to what Nick and me and Anthony and Tony were talking about on the episode with the Black Hellhounds of Taylor, Texas. The episode we did not last Friday, but the Friday before that we dropped. It has something to do with like what Nick was saying about how people can perceive. I believe it was him that was saying that like people like me and Tony Duran can see things, where other people don't see them. And it brings these things into focus, these creatures or entities. So, anyways, I was wondering what you people at home, what your thoughts are. I would like for anybody who's in the live chat right now to just drop your opinion about whether you think these things are possibly metaphysical or if they're more flesh and blood based, what your opinion is. I mean, you're entitled to it. Oh, Brian says here, PRT is number one. Any stories from the RGV? What is it?
You might have to clarify.
Rio Grande Valley. I'm pretty sure that's what you're asking. Rio Grande Valley, man, there are so many, Brian, there's so many stories from the Rio Grande Valley. The Rio Grande Valley here in Texas is a very weird place. I don't tend to go down there in the wintertime. There's a lot of snowbirds that live down there in the wintertime, people from the north that try to escape the really cold winters. And it's just not my scene in the wintertime, but I do go down there sometimes in the spring. Just for everybody's information, people were asking about the recent snowfall, the 6 inches or whatever that got dumped on us here in Central Texas. It's not out of the realm, you know. Since my wife's been here, the temperature has dropped into the teens multiple times. Just so you know, the weather here in Texas gets really cold. It does. It does. Central Texas, I believe we're like in the 40s today, so it's kind of warm. But last night it was in the mid 20s. It gets cold. I mean, you know, and the summers are hot. The summers are absolutely brutal. They will roast you. And the winters can be bitterly cold. You would be shocked. I think the coldest I remember was when I was living out in the country. And, you know, I don't know if you can look this up or not, but I know that I was living out in the country. So it wasn't in town. It was like 20 miles out in the middle of nowhere. And I remember it getting down to 11 degrees. And that was when I was a kid. And I know that most of the weather is, you know, you'll see that the major cities like Austin, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, El Paso, you'll get those cities as in Corpus Christi, you know. I mean, you'll get the weather for those cities, but you don't really get like the smaller towns out there, you know. Anyways, Anna Schote sent me this. She said, well, there's the High Rockies, Vail. The first thing she said was Vail, and it was Breckenridge, Frisco, and Keystone. And I was in Breckenridge year before last. Breckenridge, Frisco, Keystone. That whole area is really weird. It's got like a really weird vibe to it. It feels kind of supernatural just being up there. There's something to it. So Vail is the place that we were talking about. Thank you, Anna Choate, for responding to that. So that was the place where the spontaneous combustion took place. Was they were up in the area near Vail, like way up in the elevation. Vail, I don't know what the elevation is up there that would lend to someone. I know the air is thin, the oxygen is thin, so you would think that a lower oxygen would make it to where there is like fire needs oxygen. So it didn't seem like fire would just, you know, be as easily like it would just come out, you know, because there's not as much oxygen. So maybe that's why it didn't last. And they had all been drinking, and I know that they were drinking some really heavy liquor. A lot of these people who have this spontaneous combustion apparently are people who are drinkers. They drink heavily, and so that's one of the things that I've learned about spontaneous combustion. How many cryptic, or I guess you're trying to say cryptid or ghost encounters have you had? I don't know. Cryptids, defining cryptids, I don't know. Like maybe one. If you define them as a flesh and blood thing, possibly one. But I have had a ton of paranormal encounters, and because I believe I'm an experiencer, and I've talked to people recently, researchers and people that run paranormal groups and ghost hunters, a group of ghost hunters that told me that people that have the experiences I have, they tend to be, it goes beyond just being an experiencer. It's like you're a magnet for paranormal activity. And people think, oh, you know, that would be cool. Not really. Also, not that it would or wouldn't be cool, but it can be nerve wracking. You see things And a lot of times when people are with you, they see things that they normally wouldn't because they're with you. I don't know how to explain that. Most of the things that have happened to me, I've had witnesses to these events, just like the thing that happened in Taylor with my friend Tony Duran. If you just go around telling people, well, I've seen this, seen that, seen this, seen that, do you have people who can corroborate that? Yes, I did. And I had multiple people who lived in the house with me that could corroborate the things that I've seen. Like, that's why I brought Chief on the show. I was thinking about bringing Squid on the show too, but it would just be a lot of rehashing of what we've already talked about. My friend Taz that passed away back in May, he had talked to several fans of the show before he passed, and he told them, yeah, a lot of crazy stuff happened there. My friend Loki can attest that there was a lot of weird things that happened. Scorpion and Diablo both been on the show, talk about their experiences. I mean, we could march a whole parade of people and just bring them and have them talk about it. My nephew Anthony, who's actually sitting across from me, has had multiple experiences too, but for the longest time, if you asked him, he would say, no, I'm not really. That's just because he didn't put them all together. If you sit back and you put down all your experiences together, then it turns into sort of a book. Right, Anthony?
Yeah.
Because you thought, well, I didn't really have a lot. And then you had that weird thing with the woman wailing, which we think maybe was La Llorona. And then you had the incident where there was some people were asking me about this one too. My nephew had a really strange incident that took place at in a building called Skyline Terrace here in Austin. It used to be a client of ours, and I really don't care. I don't really, if there's that client. I don't care about the whatever. But the building, there was a weird incident that took place, and it happened to Anthony. And then there was another thing that happened to Anthony in our apartment that we had. So yeah, there was some weird stuff that went on with him. I need to take a quick break. Do you want to take over for a second? Okay. Would you tell that story?
What about Skyline Terrace?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because I've been asked multiple times to be touched on that in one of the episodes. I will be right back, folks.
All right, here we go. Let me just get this on. I'm gonna turn the audio up a little bit because I've been having people saying that it's kind of low. Kind of set it for myself earlier because I have the mic like right here, but Wolf kind of got it like on his jacket lapel, so you probably can't hear him that well. Okay. Hang on one sec. I'll get to the story, and then if there's time, get to some questions myself if I can answer them. Let me just fix this mic, get it a little bit louder for y'all. That's not it. Okay, here we go. Turn the gain up on this thing just a little bit. All right, that should be good. Okay, so what Wolf was talking about at this place called Skyline Terrace and my story there, something that kind of happened to me. I mean, it's not like terrifying, but it creeped me out. We had this account called Skyline Terrace that we would work at, and it used to be a hotel building, but this kind of low-income housing company bought it out, and they turned it into like efficiency apartments. And so it was like 6 floors, and no, it was 6.
I was thinking of it.
Yeah. And we had to work the front desk because if you had a guest, they had to check in and show the ID and all that. So they had regulations we had to follow. So I was working there on an overnight shift. They have someone there working the front desk around the clock, 24/7. So they have 3 8-hour shifts. I relieved the guy who worked the swing shift from 4 to midnight. My shift was from midnight to 8. So I got there at midnight, and I I was briefed by the guy who I relieved, and he just told me this happened, that happened, blah, 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 just all the relevant information that I'm going to need for my shift. And he starts to walk out, and he saved this for last, the turd. He turns around and he goes, oh, by the way, the resident in 324, he died in his room last night. So since you're working until 8 a.m., you might have some people from the coroner's office who show up to sanitize his apartment because everything is just as he left it. He passed away. And I just told him, okay, thank you. But I'm thinking to myself, well, that's a heck of a thing to just drop on me and then walk out the door. But whatever. I mean, it's fine. And so from midnight to about 3 a.m., everything's fine and quiet. And at 3 a.m., right on the dot at 3 a.m., I get a call from this lady, from one of the residents. She calls the front desk, and she says, I want to file a noise complaint. And I said, okay, ma'am, what's your apartment number? She said, I'm in 224, and I want to complain about my neighbor. He's been keeping me up. He's been making a bunch of noise. I don't know if it sounds like he's dragging his furniture or dropping bowling balls. I don't know what he's doing, but he woke me up out of a dead sleep, and it keeps happening, and I can't get back to bed. I said, okay, is it your neighbor on the left or on the right of you? And she said, no, it's the neighbor above me. And a light bulb kind of went off in my head, and I said, okay, can you repeat your apartment number again? She said, I'm in 224. That's on the second floor. The guy who died last night was in 324, right above her, on the third floor. And I said, okay, I'll go check it out, ma'am. And so I go up to 324, and for what felt like a solid 5 minutes, which is probably 10 seconds, but it felt like 5 minutes, I was just standing there staring at the door. And I have a master key to all the units. So I'm working there, I'm doing security. I have to go and check it. I don't have a choice. I can't just chicken out because I'm on camera. And if word gets to the managers that I got a noise complaint and I didn't follow up on it, then I'm going to hear about it. That's my money. You don't play with that. And so I finally work up the courage to slide that master key in there. And I open it up, and at first I don't take a step in there. I just kind of poke my head in the door, and just from there you could tell that everything was just how we left it. Everything, like all of his stuff was still there. And everything looked fine. But you got to remember, these are efficiency apartments, which means they're hotel rooms that were turned into apartments. So it's all just like one room. And so I walk in, and I see like his living area / bedroom. And you could tell by the way everything was set up that his bed was in the corner of the room. But his bed now was like in the center of the room and kind of like twisted at an angle. And from the corner of the room where the bed was to where the bed was now, there was like these skid marks, like these black skid marks, like someone had just grabbed it and put a bunch of weight on it and just dragged it and flung it all across the floor. It was weird. Like you know how on that glossy tile you'll see those black skid marks from, I guess, like the rubber of your shoes. It was like that, and it was like all over the floor, and it came from the bed. So and there was no one in that room. No one broke in. I checked the cameras. So it's on the third floor, so you can't get there from the window. I checked the cameras. No one went in from the front and only door. So I don't know. It really spooked me. Now the rest of the night, everything was fine. Like after I went in and checked and looked, the lady never called back. No one else complained. But yeah, for the life of me can't explain that. So yeah, that's that. There's a bunch of chat messages here that passed by that I'm not. Yeah. I think I'm gonna change these lights around a little bit too.
So folks,
might be a little disorienting because I'm gonna mess with these lights, but bear with us.
We're eventually gonna get it all down where we get this smooth. We're trying something with the lighting today. Will that work? How's that sound? I hope everybody can hear me. Can everybody hear me? Is anyone else hungry or just me? I just texted Nellie and asked her if she was hungry. So it's just you. Hilton just got here. You're late. Dino, is that Demos? Mars, do you have any gnome stories? Yes, I do. That's a good one because I was just talking to someone about these red cap gnome type creatures yesterday or day before. And I have some. I have some pretty, well, not a lot of them, but I have a couple of gnarly ones. We'll be doing one episode pretty soon about this exorcism that took place in Brazil too. That I was talking about over the weekend with Anthony and my wife. It's pretty crazy. I get lots and lots of stories. Hopefully Nellie is doing good. She's been having some insomnia because of the pain of her back, so. Okay, so I was just told that my sweater is rubbing against the mic. So maybe I need to move it.
Put it on the collar of your shirt if you want.
Where can I put it? Maybe like that. Is that better, folks? Does that please you? Huh? Does it? Just reading through the comments. Here, Bernard Fox. Any good taquerias you could recommend in looking for a good carne asada like Corpus style, South Texas? If you're looking for carne asada, if you're, and this is going to sound funny, but Bill Miller, okay, it's a barbecue chain, but Anthony can tell you they have like the best breakfast tacos, and their carne asada breakfast taco is second to none. But it's only in the mornings. They get to like 10, 11 a.m. But they have good carne asada. Now, if you're looking for a place to go sit down and eat carne asada any time of the day or night, La Posada in South Austin off of William Cannon, La Posada, can't go wrong. They have really good carne asada. You're talking like South Texas style carne asada. It depends on what style. There's a place on the Riverwalk in San Antonio too that has really good carne asada, but it's made. It's called what is that place called? We go eat there whenever we're in San Antonio. It's right there on the Riverwalk, right there by the mall, by River Center Mall. Maria Mia. Hopefully, it survived the COVID. Maria Mia has very good carne asada. It's made a little differently though, because not all carne asada is created equal. Now, folks, I'm talking about carne guisada, not carne asada. Carne asada is a type of steak. Carne guisada is different. It's made almost like beef tips with a stew type sauce, gravy. It's really good. It's a Mexican dish. Looking for the morning spots, then go to Bill Miller and ask for the carne asada taco. You won't be disappointed. Mark Rose, do you have any red cap stories? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I will actually get into those. Nelly, if you're there listening, mark that down about the red caps, because when I do the Duende episode, which is going to be coming up, we're going to talk about little people, and the red caps play a prominent role in those stories. I still get stories downtown. I'll give you a story. I still get stories downtown, 6th Street, and I'm not making this up. There's a lot of people downtown that tell you that there is a lot of weird stuff that happens in those old buildings, and there's a lot of people downtown that are convinced that those buildings carry, either underneath them or within the walls or both, a race of little monitos, as they say in Spanish, duende. And I have talked to people. I mean, not like just tons of people, but like I've talked to several people who can attest that they've seen these creatures, or at least in the corner of their eye. One happened recently. I was talking to a friend, a mutual friend of me and my brothers from back in the old days, and she's a bartender, and she is the former roommate of a girl that we all know, and I actually covered her wasn't a Dogman or Goatman story. It was something in between. We don't know what it was, but I covered it on Dogman Encounters. I think it was either episode 247 or 248, but it was something that she saw in the same vicinity as my friend Arash. My friend Arash, who owns Spinners. By the way, if you're in Austin, the Austin area, just quick sidelight, they have turkey legs that are second to none. I mean, I'm talking like they're the best, second to none. And they have a smoked crawfish mac and cheese. So if you're in the Austin area, check out Spinners. He's not paying me to plug it. I'm just plugging it because it's that dang good. So anyways, Arash has had two Dogman encounters. Now, the purist would say one was a werewolf and one was a Dogman. But I don't know which is which. I don't know how to make heads or tails. One happened near Lubbock, which is this guy that I've been talking to recently. You know who you are. You sent me a message and we've been talking. I messaged you, you messaged me. You put a brief overview on Dogman Believers, but I don't know if I should say your name, whatever, but you put a story up there recently. That is Cindy Respotnik and Carrie Eaton's group. And I got in touch with you, and we messaged back and forth, and his happened near Lubbock. Our Ash's Dogman encounter happened near Lubbock. And then our Ash saw something that was very werewolf looking near Ditmar here in Austin. If you look on a map, you can probably find it. But this girl, I'll call her Lydia, for lack of a better name. It sounds kind of close to. But she was the roommate of a bartender that worked with me, our Ash and Squid and Diablo and Scorpion back in the day. And she gave us, we were all there one night just hanging out. Tony, stepdad, Chad, we were all there hanging out, Chief. And she told us all a crazy story about this creature that she encountered that looked almost like the Wolfman from the Benicio del Toro movie with Anthony Hopkins, the Wolfman. And so that was a very heart-thumping encounter. She started working as a bartender downtown at another bar that was frequented by some of the people that I hung out with. And so she told me recently, she sent a message saying that she had seen something that looked like a gnome type creature come out of one of the walls. Not like it was flesh and blood. Like she saw it look like flesh and blood. It was not like it came out of the wall like spectrally, you know. It was like she was sitting there doing her whatever, and this particular bar has been open through the COVID thing as being a restaurant, because that's not kind of a loophole, but it's also, if you're a restaurant, you can stay open, but a bar has to be closed, whatever. That's the rules here in Texas. But this is they sell food there. So anyway, she was taking someone's order, and her and the customer both saw it. And this thing just kind of stepped out from the wall. It was approximately 8 to 9 inches tall, according to what she said. And she said it took a look to the left where they were at, and then just darted back in through the wall. And the way it came out of the wall, it was like it got down and shot underneath the baseboard. Like there was enough room. When they went and they looked where this thing came out of, there was like a 2 or 3 inch crevice under, like where the baseboard had been lifted up. And so obviously this thing came out of the wall, shot through, and then shot back into the wall. Like kind of, I guess you would say crawl, but she didn't say crawl. She said it just came out of the wall, like it just popped up, and then it just went down and shot back into the wall. That's how she described it. And it was also wearing a red cap, a small little Papa Smurf hat, as she called it. And so it's not a coincidence also that this person has had a Dogman or possibly Goatman, whatever, encounter in that same area where Arash had his off of in between William Cannon and Slaughter Lane. It's called Ditmar, that area. And there's a park, and there's always been a lot of weird stuff that's been seen in that area. And so I think that people like her, because she's also seen a full-bodied apparition in an apartment she was sharing with a roommate. So if you look at her encounter as having had 3 encounters, you could say one was a cryptid, one was a little people, possibly flesh and blood, and then a spiritual. Or you could look at it as they were all spiritual, and those things were just manifesting as physical creatures. I can't tell you. I mean, I just get the stories and I repeat them. How's my sound? My sound good, everybody? What is this? Ainsley Mullane Drun? That's Tony that does, not Anthony. Tony and Anthony are 2 different people, folks. I can't tell you that enough times.
Be way behind in the chat. You gotta.
Yeah, no, I was just reading that comment.
Because people will get mad, like they ask a question, and then you don't see it because you're like behind in the chat, and they'll be like, "Oh, Josh Turner don't see my question."
Max Rangel, repressed memory. I think things are hidden in your memory for a reason. Growing up, I always had an irrational fear of gnomes or duendes. Come to find out, me and a cousin had an encounter. It's not surprising.
Oh, someone's asking about your necklace.
Oh, I had this one made. The guy that was made was a Cajun guy that used to make my jewelry. Now it's a Vietnamese couple that do my jewelry, my custom made jewelry. But this one, like I said before, when I used to work in a nightclub, and I would basically collect broken gold, and this one is if you zoom in on the camera a little bit, I can show you. It is a St. Michael pendant, and it's custom made. It is the Archangel Michael. I wear that. So that's my necklace that I'm wearing today. Doc Snake, will there be more vampire stories soon? Actually, I was talking about that with Nelly last night. Yes, there are, because I just got a couple. But they're all kind of on the same, and it says that, thank you for supporting us, by the way, Doc Snake, your donation. Thank you. I got a couple, and we were watching a movie last night. If you haven't seen it, it's on Shudder, which you can get through Amazon Prime. I don't know how much it costs per month, and Nelly is in charge of that. But Nelly, you can message me and tell me how much it costs. I don't know how much Shudder is. I can tell the good folks at home there whether it's worth it or not. I'm not a big horror movie guy, and partly because I think horror movies also influence people's minds and make them think, they see things that they don't, or it scares you into thinking something. So I'm not real big into horror movies, but I'll watch one every once in a while. So my wife had this movie on last night, and I got into it, and it was called The Shed. And it was a vampire movie. It was actually very good. It was a pretty good movie. My favorite vampire stuff going on right now is, what is the show? What We Do in the Shadows? Oh, yeah. That is so hilarious. Our friend was killed in the horrible sunlight accident. It's a very good show. If you haven't seen it, it's really good. My favorite character is Christopher Robbins. He's the energy vampire. He talks like this, and he's kind of drones on, and he just kind of he's kind of drains your energy, talking ad nauseum about nothing. And then we all know people like that. I've been at not too long ago at a Christmas party, and there was a guy that was going around just making people fall asleep, and when it was my turn, I just started doing it to him. I just started talking about the cashew and how it's actually a seed. And anyway, moving on. My brother-in-law's aunt has little people. This is Stimulate. This is his story. It says here, they have little people living in the yard. They don't bother them. They just make sure not to offend them anyhow. I have somebody recently that told me that they could take me somewhere in Round Rock, and they could take me to these little people where they live and see them. And I declined. Most of the stories of the fae, fairies, little people, trolls, goblins, whatever you want to call them, I think they're all different, but they're also all cousins. They're all kind of in the same family. They can really cause problems for you. Going back to having had a lot of paranormal encounters, I'm going to tell you this. I've had two what I think may have been fairy encounters. One was when I was a young man of 16, and I was in a facility where they put people when you need a timeout. So I will just say that. And I was being escorted from one unit to another unit when I was being transferred, and I was carrying my little bit of belongings with my bag. And I got to know the techs and the guards and everybody that worked there pretty well. And I was pretty friendly terms with them, and there was a couple of guys with us. And the one guy, I can't remember his name. His name was but the other guy's name was Shelby. Oh no, it was Craig and Shelby. And one of those guys I've stayed friends with for years. He's an African American guy. He used to come to my bar like all the time. So Shelby, if you're out there, hit me up. I don't know if you remember this incident, but we were walking, and we saw. This is just a real quick story. We saw this like ball of light come from the woods because he used to see them in the woods all the time, and people would say, "Well, those are fireflies." And no, they were not, because they were about this big around. And this thing came zipping toward us, and then went around a lamppost twice, really fast, and then took off. At that moment, I didn't get a good look and say, "Oh, that's a fairy," but we saw this little ball of light zipping around real fast. It kind of almost looked like it had a little grasshopper-like body sticking out of it. So I thought maybe it was some sort of bug that was illuminating. The two guys that I was with, the guards, the techs, whatever you want to call them, they were like, "What was that? That's weird. That's crazy," But a couple days later, I was talking to another guard there, and he told me that there was a weird kid that used to stay in the room that was in the cell room, whatever you want to call it. It's kind of a room. I want to call it like it was like a reformatory. It was like a halfway house, like a place where you're not free to do what you want, but you're not completely in jail either. It was like for wayward youths, let's put it that way. So this person said that the kid that was in the room next to mine would talk about seeing a glowing yellow fairy-looking creature that would come to the window and bang on the window, but that it wasn't a pleasant thing. It was actually very malevolent, and that it scared him, and he had to be moved to the other side where there were no windows. And so one night, I had a roommate. His name was Matt. I've lost touch with him, but he woke me up because there were two beds, two bunks, whatever. He woke me up and he said, "Dude, check it out." And it was like 11 o'clock at night. We went to bed like at 9:30 or something. And I woke up and there was this weird looking bug thing like smacking against the glass. And when I got up to the window, it was gone. He claims that it was like almost like Jiminy Cricket. Like it had a human-like face with weird-looking, like 4 arms, but it was almost like a grasshopper, but it looked like a human. If that makes any sense, and I didn't get a good look at it because by the time I got up there, it was gone. But I did see the little light that zipped around the lamppost. Another time I was with my Aunt Linda, and we were in Taylor off of Jason Street, and Taylor, doesn't surprise me, is weird. And we were sitting there talking, and I had went to pick up some books because she's a psychologist, and I had gone to pick up some psychology books from her, and we were standing by my truck talking, and I saw this weird-looking, like little yellowish, same thing, kind of like a ball of light, but you could see the wings flapping really fast, almost like a hummingbird. And we both looked, and for a split second, it looked like a little person there hovering above my truck, and then it went pew, and it was gone. And it happened so fast, I was just like, I looked at Linda and I was like, did you see that? What was that? And she was like, yeah, I see him all the time, which with her, she may be messing with me or she may be being honest. I have no idea. She likes to joke around, but she thought nothing of it. She didn't think, she wasn't like, oh, wow, that's a crazy, weird thing. She was just like very matter of fact, oh yeah, I see them all the time. And I'm just like, okay. And that was probably like 7 years ago, probably, or yeah, maybe 6 years ago, 2014. So, from 1991 to 2014, that's a long stretch, How many years is that? 15? Is that 15 years? What is that? 1991 to 2014? Not 15 years. That would be 25 years or 24 years, something like that. 23 years, sorry. So yeah, 2 incidents that took place 23 years apart. So I don't know what to make of that. I know that there are some people who are uncomfortable talking about these creatures because they believe that they can be anywhere from mischievous to malevolent. But I get stories that run the full spectrum of what they are. I was going to tell those encounters on the regular show, and I may reiterate them on the show. But I wanted to give you guys a few stories on the live stream, so it's not just me answering questions like bam, bam, bam. Yeah, let's get to some questions here.
One guy asked if you had any paranormal clown stories.
Yeah, you know that. Actually, there will be. My cousin Trey will be on the show. We'll be doing the show with him this coming Friday. It's going to be a 2-parter, right?
Yeah.
I believe the second part of that of the show, I believe, is when he talks about a clown that is seen around the reservation and around the casinos. I think it's the second part, isn't it?
I think so.
Because the first part, I think, is he talks about the skinwalker, and then he gets into a lot of other weird stuff. And then the second part, he talks about a clown that people see around this reservation. I just remember us talking about it, and I'm pretty sure that we recorded all that. And so it's been, like I said, months since we recorded this. But that will probably be next week and then the week after. People have a tendency to not listen to the part 2s of our shows because you can look at the views and see that part 1 got a lot more views than part 2. And it's kind of disheartening for me because a lot of times the part 2 will get a lot more meat. I was talking to one of our people that we did the show with. I'm going to look it up real quick and see which one it was before I open my mouth and say the wrong thing. But there was a guest that we had on the other day. That I was talking to the other day, and she was talking about how her episodes didn't get the part 2, which is where a lot of the good information was. Because a lot of times, part 1, you're just getting into the groove and you're getting things going, and then part 2 will come on and kind of bring things home. But people seem to just drop off after the first one and then say, I'm not going to go back to the part 2. This seems to be an unfortunate thing. But I'm going to look it up real quick here. It goes way back. Just like I know one of the things I talked about, the City of Night, which I keep getting messages about. People like City of Night. Episode 39, Afterlife and Near-Death Experiences with Laura Ketchler. It was that episode where we talked about the City of Night. And I think we get into it right at the beginning of the episode. Yeah, it was Anna Choate. We were talking. She did it. It was a two-parter. It was her because it was episode 28, a haunting at Fox Hollow Farm, the interview with Anna Choate, and it was about serial killer Herb Baumeister and things that were going on there. Of course, there was a spot on the History Channel, I think, or Discovery Channel, or maybe both. There was a couple different documentaries about him. One was just about his murdering and all the things he did, and then there was another documentary that was made about the hauntings that have gone on there. So at episode 28 of a haunting at Fox Hollow Farm, Anna comes on and talks. We got 13,000 views on that one. But then episode 29, where she comes and talks, and they're the same, it's just a part 2 of it, we only got 7.8 thousand views. So like 5,000 less views. And that just seems to be a trend. Like we'll do a 2-parter and people will watch the first part and then second part, they're just kind of like, whatever. But then you miss a ton of information and you'll miss stories about Dogman, Bigfoot, and other stuff that'll come up in those part 2s. And I've gone back and listened to part 1s and part 2s, and a lot of times I think part 2s are actually better, the second part, because you get more into the meat and potatoes of the whatever. My wife just sent me a message. Shudder is $5.99 a month. There again, they're not paying me to promote their stuff, but if you're into horror, the horror genre, then there you go. Lionel Broad, it says, do some people that research the paranormal often suggest that the myriad beings we see are the Nephilim, great men of renown? I think the great men of renown are Hercules, Thor, blah, blah, blah. I think that's who they are. I think they were real. And people that are uninitiated will say, well, that sounds silly. But we know that's not the case, right, folks? Because we are initiated. The Nephilim are very, very possible. And now I've also talked about the Jinn, and people have often asked me if I believe that the Jinn and the Nephilim are one and the same. Possibly, but then again, maybe not. We don't really know. It's hard to say 100%. Like what's going on. The Muslims believe that the Jinn are like that's their version of demons. The Christians call them demons, but in the Book of Enoch, they are called evil spirits, and that they're going to be with us until the end. And they're basically what they are is they were destroyed. They were an antediluvian race, which is pre-flood. They were destroyed during the days of Noah, for the most part, and now they roam the earth as evil spirits. They are the offspring of the 200 watchers that were set up on the earth and mated with the daughters of man because they thought that the women looked good, which was against God's will. Charles Hemfield, clowns are easy to deal with. Baseball bat. Yeah. If it is a human wearing makeup and a big red nose. Nathan Burr, part 2's Bring It Home, the best part of the meat. Yes, you're absolutely correct. And it's unfortunate that people are not listening to part 2's. Paul Kokorotsis sounds like a Greek name. I'm not butchering it too badly. Hey, Josh, have you heard the theory that the Loch Ness Monster was conjured up by Aleister Crowley? Yes, I have. I know that the guys from Led Zeppelin who bought the castle. Can you look that up for me? I think, because I don't want to be wrong about that. Exactly which member of Led Zeppelin bought it? Robert Plant or whatever, but. They claimed that the place was completely haunted, and that there were sightings outside of the castle in the water of a serpentine type creature. I got stories about that. That was people claiming to see it near the home of Aleister Crowley. Maybe he opened up a portal. Here's the theory about that. Maybe Aleister Crowley, with his doing what he did with the magic and things he was doing, maybe he opened up a portal that brought an actual, it created a rift and it brought an actual flesh and blood creature or creatures into our realm, or maybe it was a thought form or tulpa that they focused on and brought it to the loch and gave it life. But without sufficient energy, it gradually died off. And maybe it was just based upon the mosasaur, the plesiosaur creature that we know of through fossil records, or maybe it was just something that was in their minds. And they said, "Oh, we're going to bring this creature forth and make it a tulpa." So that's a theory too, that Aleister Crowley may have been involved in doing that.
Jimmy
Page,
yeah.
I was just about to say Jimmy Page, and I know that there were stories that Page had done rituals and things like that. A lot of these people who are rock stars, who are rap stars, who are big, whatever, they get to where they're at and become famous and become popular because the powers that be oftentimes are into some dark stuff, and those people they're willing to play ball with them, and so they because there's a lot of great singers, great artists out there that never make it, and they're not willing to compromise their morals. They're not willing to be evil and satanic, so they don't make it. But that's a lot of what happens. Oftentimes, these people will be they'll make it because the evil, people that run these industries know that they can manipulate them and they have something on them. And I definitely think that Led Zeppelin was into some pretty dark stuff.
I think he also claimed that Stairway to Heaven just kind of came to him in a trance or something, that like his hand was guided by some outside force in writing it.
And then of course there's the backmasking.
Like he doesn't take credit for writing it. Yeah, and if you play it backwards, it says "My sweet Satan." My sweet Satan.
Yeah, it's always like that. There's always some sort of, but people always say, "Well, that's not well, there's smoke, there's fire, folks." Says Dick Richards. Hey Dick, shout out to my boy Dick here. It says Loch Ness has parallel quartz crystal walls, and that opens up portals and the possibilities of time travel and all sorts of nonsensical crap. The Devil's Glen near me is the same, only cave walls. I don't know about that. I mean, I agree with what you're saying about the quartz. If that's true, if that's the case, someone can research that for me and send it to me, and I can talk about it. But I don't know if that's the case. If that they are quartz crystal walls in there, I know that limestone, which is what Austin's built on. I was talking to a waiter the other day at Jack Allen's Kitchen. We went to go eat dinner, and the waiter told us, Anthony, that he had bought a house down in Convict Hill, which is where the convicts actually literally would mine limestone, and that there was basically the ghost of a convict who was dressed just like the convicts that used to dress, and his little daughter was seeing this ghost type entity in their house that was dressed like a convict. And limestone supposedly is got a lot of energy that gives off, so creates hauntings and things. Double A, so he's straight up Back to the Future to dinosaur. You know what? Maybe. I mean, I don't know. Maybe. Says they reckon the Yowie took him into the bush. Rangers and mapping, including sightings, all point to the poor love Andy Hobo. Charlie B, what is that exactly you're talking about there with the Yowie? You want to look for a question? Sheila Loya, Shapeshifters in the Woods Part 2 was the best show I've heard yet. Speaking of which, Sheila, you were a winner of the contest, I believe. Did you receive your stuff? Cheryl Clark, have you heard of a place called what is it? Cades Cove in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. There are a lot of cryptid sightings there. Just got stories recently about caves in Tennessee involving giant spiders, and I'm going to do a show about that at some point. These white spiders, and it kind of echoes what an entomologist sent me. I got in touch with this entomologist through a very, very well-known cryptid researcher, and he gave me this guy's information, and we hit it off, and we started talking. And he told of a spider up in Ecuador that would actually bite people, and it paralyzed them. And then when the other natives would come, it would hide up in the tree and then wait for them to leave, and then come back down, because they observed this, because they didn't know what had done it, and they thought that it was a vampire or something that was attacking these people. So their legends were that there was some sort of creature doing it. And when they left the person there, because the person would inevitably wake up if the toxin ran its course. But so they didn't know what was causing these people to become paralyzed and then reawaken, and the people themselves didn't know what had attacked them. So they thought it was some sort of spirit or whatever, but it turned out it was a giant spider. And this spider would go and hide up in the tree. And then, I'm not talking like a giant, like a dog-sized spider, but like, spider. And it would bite them on the leg and then scurry away and then wait for them to become paralyzed and then come down and feast on them. And sometimes they would find corpses that had been completely sucked dry. But I'm going to get into the whole, the caves, and these what this one lady termed crystalline, she said, spiders from these caves that would bite people. And there's a rake connection there, but we're going to talk about that.
So Emco has a question. He says, Josh, can you tell me about your pistol that came up missing when you were guarding that house? You said it was unloaded when you found it. Was it a revolver or a semi?
It was a revolver. And the question for that, Charles, or the reason for the question, that was in the 90s. So that's what happened. Oh, my bad. Just in case, the Immortal show was the best. Well, it may be. That's your opinion. I respect it. A lot of people like that episode. Here's another one. Demos Mars, once again. I noticed really tiny little white spiders all the time that seem to appear from nowhere. I don't know. I've heard people talk about that. I think these little tiny white spiders are babies, and then they grow up to be whatever gross thing that they're going to be. But I've heard of people talk about that, like these little tiny spiders are almost like see-through. Geez, gosh, I don't. If you're seeing them all the time, then be careful, because there's a lot of spiders that start off like that, and then when they get older, they become. What did that do?
Turn your volume up a little bit.
Turn my volume up a little bit. So, one of the things I was going to tell you too, me and Nellie were talking about haunted vehicles the other day. We got into this whole thing about haunted vehicles, and I have 2 or 3 stories about that. A couple of them are pretty good, and a couple are just kind of there. But if you have any stories of haunted vehicles, let me know, because I'm going to do a show about that. Because some of them, the two stories I have are pretty gruesome, pretty crazy, that are show worthy anyway.
I've seen this question a few times now. Someone's asking if you ever interviewed Dark Waters.
No, I have not, but I do talk to him on occasion, and I have thought about interviewing him. But uh, there are a lot of people who like dark waters, but there's also a lot of people who don't like dark waters, and so in order to interview dark waters, you would um, have to take the heat for whoever doesn't like him because he does have a lot of enemies. I think some of his enemies may be deserved, but I think a lot of them aren't. I think because Dark would lash out when people would say things, and he would get angry. He's never been untoward to me. He's never been unkind to me, even knowing that me and Vic are good friends, and he doesn't like Vic at all. He doesn't seem to have ever done anything underhanded or have any ill will toward me. I've been told by a bunch of people, "Hey, be careful! Don't talk to him. Don't deal with him. He'll stab you in the back." It's not been my experience up to this point. You know, if the time comes and that happens, well, you know, I interviewed Chris Cyrus, and I don't ever talk to him anymore because of the things that have gone on. I don't talk to Michael Moran anymore, and I've interviewed him. So if we interview and we don't talk anymore, well, then so be it. But yeah, I do need to at some point maybe get him on the show. He does have a lot of interesting information, and that's what I need. Like I don't necessarily like Simon Young as an individual, and don't like a lot of his views, and he can be very crass and rude, and he's got a lot of enemies. But I did interview him, and I got his information about the Yowie because he does know his stuff about the Yowie, and we don't really talk anymore. But I do feel like it's important to get the information out there from these people, and give them a chance to say what they have to say. Um, the only person that I really regret interviewing at all is probably Chris Cyrus because I think a lot of the information that he has is just nonsense. I don't think he really has. I don't think he really brings much to the table. Even Michael Moran, who I don't really talk to anymore because of some issues with the way he was treating people, whatever. That's going to be between him and those people. And I'm just, I'm not going to get into it with him anymore about it. I gave him a chance to apologize to those people and admit what he did. And he didn't take the opportunity. But that, like I said, doesn't detract from his story. I still think that he had a story to tell, and he had been asked that story by me, by Mushu, by my wife, all separately, and he told the story the same every time. So it was something that he believed happened to him. And like I said, I think Simon Young has he's a controversial guy because he's very just outspoken, and he can be very brash and rude in his groups or whatever. And but I think he is a good researcher when it comes to the Yowie. He knows his stuff, and he's got good information. So I didn't want to discount what he had to say just because of our personal clash or whatever. Same thing with Dark Waters. I at this point have no beef with him at all. If something develops or whatever, then I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But as of right now, I have no problem with the guy. Somebody had told me that he just recently acquired the BDRP. I don't know if that's true or not. Dark, if you're listening, you're out there, hit me up. Tell me what's up. I used to be good friends with DDoS. DDoS obviously is indisposed at the moment, and there has been controversy surrounding him, and I keep getting asked about him over and over again. Look, man, I haven't talked to the guy since that incident happened. I haven't since the incident with whatever went on, the videos that were posted to his channel. I have no, opinion to give about that. So I'm not going to sit up here and talk about what I really don't know because there's one person's side and the other person's side, and there's the truth. So I keep getting questioned about these different researchers and people, and that's where I stand with those people. I don't mix words, and I always try to be as honest and truthful as possible about how I feel about people. I will retell people's stories within reason, and it's up to you, the listener at home, to decide whether or not you believe it or don't believe it. It's no skin off my nose if you believe it or you don't believe it. That's what I do. Get Scott Martis back on if you can. Some of my favorites. I've just been doing some research on some dinosaur stuff. Kind of got into that with the whole thing with Ken, with the episode we did about possibly extinct animals being cryptids, and I talk to Scott pretty regularly. Scott's a good guy. I mean, I get along with him really well. But he's a good guy to get on and talk about cryptids, in particular water cryptids. But he knows a lot about dinosaurs. So some of the sightings and things that we get of dinosaurs could be something that Scott could come on and give his expertise about. So yes, I am on board with doing that. I will get in touch with him soon because I've been doing some research on that. I research, I had David Weatherly on my show, and I was really excited to talk to David. I was always a big fan of his work, the Black Eyed Kids and everything. And one of the things that we talked about on and off the air was, he is always doing several different projects at once. Like he's got half a dozen projects going at any given time. Same thing for me. I mean, like I'm researching like several different things. I mean, I got enough now to get ready to do the next installment of the Hernandez Ranch. Just got to find a slot to fit it into and get it going. But I'm also doing interviews with Dogman, people who've seen Dogman, and not trying. Like I said, I'm not trying to compete with Vic or anything like that. I actually moved my time slot to 7:00. We decided as a team to do that to avoid any conflict with Vic as far as like the time. That way, you guys can go on the live chat and be a part of the live chat on the show we drop, and it'll be. You can watch our show, and then after that, 8:00, you can go watch Vic's show. Because me and Vic had agreed to do it on the same day, kind of as a 1-2 punch, because he believed in me enough to think that my show would take off and that it would be big and whatever. Thank you, Wax Pants, Ghost, and Bigfoot bore me. Now, please, more obscure cryptids. Well, there's Bigfoot, and then there's some crazy Bigfoot stuff that goes on. So I got a story I'm going to be doing pretty soon about a Bigfoot that attacked a childhood friend of mine that was in a abandoned house, and those kind of Bigfoot stories are pretty intense. But so, anyways, we moved our time slot, like I said, to 7:00. So there's no competition there. And you listen to our show, you can listen to him, and then during the week or on the weekend, whenever Ryan decides to do what he's got to do. And we're going to be chopping it up with him. And I want to be able to be a part of his show as much as I can. Hope to record within the next day or two with him and get that going because it really needs to be done because Ryan, guys, he has a lot of great information, and I think he's going to be a great, podcast. It's going to be a good podcast. He literally carried the Venomous Friends for the last, few months, whatever he was on there. He was the only one that was worth listening to. Dick Richards says, Charlie Bay, yeah, there's more than one thing going on there, but the really weird vanishings are fae. I really do believe fae being like fairies. Well, it's said that if you listen to their music or if you eat their food, then you'll go to sleep and you'll wake up and a bunch of time will have passed. And you will have been reported as a missing person. So, I don't know. Josh, what can you tell people who are afraid of the supernatural? I don't know. Chicken. I'm scared. You go grow a pair. I'm being serious. I don't know. I mean, there's some people like, oh, I'm so scared. If you read the stories that I read on a daily basis, Anthony, I've read you some of these stories. I was looking at them. There's some creepy stuff, right? I mean, if you're of the faint of heart or you're afraid of it, I just don't listen. Don't, whatever. I try to break it up with I try to give it some levity, and we joke and we laugh and we have a good time. And people are like, oh, I didn't tune in for the comedy hour or whatever. Well, I guess you're hard, you're hard, you hard, dog, you hard, but other people, maybe they're not as hard. And then, of course, there are people who are completely terrified of it. And if you're completely terrified of the supernatural, well, maybe I'm not your champ, because you need to, you need to be somewhere where, you know, it's a lot softer and there's no scary stuff that goes on in the world. Because whether you like it or not, or whether you want to believe it or not, supernatural is real. It's all around us at all times. I mean, you can't dismiss it and just say that, you know, it's not, because it is. And like I said, I could sit up here and do, you know, I'm going to try to cut this off in about 30 minutes here, but I could sit up here all night long and talk your ears off about story after story after story after story. If I had the time, folks, I'm going to tell you right now, if I did not have to work my other job and always have to deal with my other business, and I had the funding and the time, I could sit here and rattle off stories for 6 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I'm not kidding, okay? I could literally give you 40 hours of stories a week, because I have so many. I get so many. And one of the reasons is because I'm very aggressive with them. I hustle. And every single human being that I come in contact with, they probably think I'm weird, because I always manage to steer the conversation towards something that I can get a story out of, something, because that is what I do. You know, I have another hobby, and it is a little time consuming hobby. So I don't really do it so much anymore, because I collect cards, sports cards, you know, baseball cards, football cards. I collect just about anything, boxing, whatever you could think of. I collect garbage pail kids, whatever. But I haven't been doing it lately, because this has been everything. All my free time has been dedicated to this. But I know, so this is pretty much it. It's a hobby / second job now. But if I had more time and the money, I would just do this full time. And my wife bought me some equipment that I can use to speak a book into existence. It's called Dragon Speak. And I'm going to be doing that. And I'm going to be writing a book. And the first thing I want to write about is probably the Dogman. And I want to write a book about Dogman. I'm not even going to give the title of it, because someone like this person whose initials are CC will go and probably try to steal the title of it and then make it his own, because that's the kind of person he is, and there's people like that. So, but I do plan on writing a book, and I want to get some input from some other people who've written books, like Nick Redfern. I was planning a trip up there. It was going to be this week, but then I had to cancel. My wife had some health issues, so planning to go up there this coming week, maybe, and visit with him, and I'm going to have him consult for me. I'm going to talk to some other people about it, and I'm going to try and write some stuff. You know, we know in this field that Linda Godfrey has kind of cornered the market on the Dogman books, and I'm not trying to compete with her. In fact, I want her input, and going to go over some stuff with these people, and just kind of write from what I got. You know, this my perspective and the stories that I got, and. So anyway, that's what's going on. I'm going to be writing a book. I'm being serious. I just haven't had time to do much, you know. But
someone else said you have any electricity stories.
My cousin that's going to be on the show on Friday will tell a story. He has a story like that, because we start from when our hometown. There are a lot of Latrusa stories from our hometown. This lighting sucks. I'm going to be honest. It's this green over here. It makes me feel like a ghoul. I look like a ghoul.
Well, that's cool. People like it.
Change.
I think what really sucks when I just turn on the fluorescent.
Change.
You don't know what you're talking about. Just talking to people about what you do.
Change.
Leave the technical stuff to me.
Change.
You don't know what you're talking about.
Vic Cundiff werewolf. Laugh out loud. Vic Cundiff is a werewolf, yes, and he looks like Ryan Reynolds, but bigger. That's why him and Dark Waters actually have a beef, folks. If I was really brutally honest with you, I'm just going to tell you the truth, man. We're all a big pack of werewolves, but we're different tribes, okay? And Dark Waters has his tribe of the Loup-Garou down in New Orleans. Vic has his tribe up in Vermont, and they're called the Woodlands Pack. And down here in Texas, we're the Hillbilly Pack. And I'm totally making that up, dude, folks. People gonna be like, Wolf has admitted that he's a werewolf. Okay. No, I have not. Because if I did, then the werewolves would have to come out and kill me. They'd have to come out and silence me. They would send a government agent to deal with me. Secret agent man. Secret werewolf man. What's the scariest story someone has sent you? Okay, I will say this. There was a story that I got from a person he's from France. Now he lives in Canada, but he had gone through a divorce and he inherited a little chateau that was out in the middle of nowhere in France. And he's an author. In the middle of winter, he went out there to write, and he writes books like a ghostwriter, like he ghostwrites whatever. And so he had an antique mirror that he sort of inherited he did inherit with the chateau. And long story short, I covered this story, and I can't tell you. That looked good the way he did it. But I can't tell you what episode that was exactly. You can look it up. It was a haunted mirror story. But I was in my office in like 4 a.m. reading that story, and everybody was gone. I think there was one person in one of the bedrooms down the hall asleep, and my wife was asleep in our bed, and I couldn't sleep, so I woke up at like 4 a.m. and I thought, you know what, I'm going to go hit the computer, read some emails, get some stories, and start working on putting some stuff together for a show, which is what I do in my spare time, pretty much, is just come up with material for a show. And so I was reading through the emails, and I read this horrific story of this thing crawling out of a mirror that scared the daylights out of me. And normally I don't get that scared about stuff, but this story was scary. And so while I'm reading this, the door starts to open just a little bit. I could see it, and it was wintertime. Maybe they'd come on, and I thought maybe that it was central heat and air or whatever. Okay, so anyways, the central heat and air I thought had come on, and maybe it moved the door. That had never happened before in that office. And so I was like, what the heck is going on? So I just kept doing what I was doing and reading this scary story, and it was very dark, and there was just a little bit of light. There was a little yellowish lamp on, and something licked my leg, like touched my leg. I felt this like wetness go up my leg, and I was like, what the heck? And I jumped up and I threw my leg out like in a karate kick, and my wife's little dog goes, yip, and runs out of the room. And it was her dog, Baby. And she was so small, I didn't see when she came in. I just saw the door because of the desk, I couldn't see, So she had pushed the door open to see what I was doing, came bebopping in there, and I didn't know it. And then had come right up to my leg and touched it and licked my leg. And so I didn't kick her, though. I just kind of slung her. And luckily, she just like hit like an Amazon box or something and just kind of took off. And I was like, that's it for me. But the story was terrifying to read. And I was having a really weird, creepy feeling like something was there in the room with me. And the mirror thing kind of hit home for me because when I lived in the house that I lived in, there were some issues with a mirror there was something that would jump in and out of the mirror, So the world is a scary place. It can be. See, Mushu joined the live chat. Andy Hobo, dude, no way. I've always been, from birth, obsessed with paranormal and collecting cards. Well, we're in the same boat. We both collect cards, and I've never been into the Pokemon cards though. I did have a couple like more expensive ones because there used to be a card shop here in Austin that I would go to, and I would trade every once in a while. And I was in there one day, and I had a couple of vintage cards. I have a large vintage baseball and football card collection. And so I had a couple of vintage cards, and this guy was looking for some Dallas Cowboys vintage cards, which I had a lot of. and all he had was a fixed amount of money to spend, and it was Christmas time, and he had some really valuable Pokemon cards, and he was looking to trade those for some Dallas Cowboys cards. I think it was like a Bob Lilly and a Bob Hayes, and he was wanting to trade because he wanted to give them to his dad for. He was going to get them graded, and he wanted to give them to his dad for Christmas. So I ran back to the house and I got a couple, and I came back and we traded. And he gave me 2 Pokemon cards, and they turned out to be very valuable. So I do have a couple, and then after that, I collected like 2 or 3. My little nephew Christian used to collect Pokemon cards pretty religiously. And Anthony, weren't you into the Pokemon cards at one time too?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were too.
Yeah, I was when I was a kid.
I'm reading the book titled Mexican Monsters by Robert Bitto. Very cheaply constructed, already has pages coming loose. I hate when that happens. Like, I was reading a book, Charles Berlitz, the very famous book about the Bermuda Triangle, as a young man, and but it was in a place where I was not allowed to leave because that happened a lot when I was young, as a kid. Folks, after I turned 17, I quit getting in trouble and doing stuff, but used to be in and out of places. And this book, the pages were like coming out of it, so I had to like read a page and pull it out, and then when I was done, I just stuffed them all back in there and took it back to the library. But yeah, I hate when that happens. Dick Richards, that freaking wacky kid card with a tomato soup can on it is being sold for $3,000. No joke. I had like triples or quadruples. Wow. The whole thing with cards, bless you. The whole thing with cards, the problem was that at one time they were becoming super duper popular, just like comic books, and so the market, the bottom fell out of them because in the 80s and 90s they began to produce way too much of it. Tops from like 87 until like the 90s, like mid 90s, just overproduced too much stuff, and it devalued everything. Um, like I used 1987 tops as bookmarks. No kidding. Like, I mean, I literally, like the Gold Cup rookie, Mark Canseco and Mark McGuire, cards that might have been worth something at that time. I literally just like, you can use those as like a bookmarker. I mean, they're just useless. Andy Hobo, now I collect souls. How's that going for you? Paul, hey Josh, do you have any stories of people encountering living saber-tooths? No. Seeing a saber-tooth, but is it flesh and blood 100%? I have no idea. I can't tell you that. That's not something that I could even, you know. Says, upon legions, hey Josh, when you had your personal Dogman experience, you said you were terrified. Do you think that this thing exuded projected fear, or was it because of the way it looked, or both? It was an aberration. I don't mean apparition. I mean aberration. Like, it was something that you don't encounter every day. So when you see it, it creates a fear within you, and because you're basically looking at something that is not of the norm. It is out of the realm of normality. So it creates a scenario that causes panic and fear within you as a person. So if you see something like that, it terrifies you, and you know, even if it's not exuding fear, I can't say 100% that this thing was projecting fear or exuding fear. I was just terrified because it's not something that you see every day. It's not something that's like a normal thing. It's out of the realm of you know what's normal, and seeing a thing that looks like a wolf on two legs as a 15-year-old is a terrifying experience. So.
Mark Rose asks, Josh, do you have any stories that are too bad / gross to air?
Yes. Yes. Some that involve like assault of a nature that I don't want to get into. The alien abduction phenomena can sometimes go in that direction where you are dealing with things of that nature, and it's like you can't really. And then there are stories of spirits or entities molesting people in their sleep and doing things, and you just can't really get into that and talk about it. It's not something I can really, and I don't care to. I mean, it's just, you know, you can't. There, in fact, on the show, there were a couple stories that I told that had more to them, and I left that part out because I'm just not going to get into it. I mean, I'm not saying this is like a family program, but it's just, you know, I'm not gonna talk about that part of it because it's just a little too much, and I think that it's not like you're adding a whole lot to the encounter by just, you know, there were encounters that I got that I only told like two or three of the things that happened and left those parts out because, like I said, there again, it's just not something that I want, you know. Has anyone heard of the Triangle Head Cryptid? I've heard of this. I'm not real sure what that is. I got a message from somebody not too long ago, maybe back in November or something, and they were like something about a triangle head, and I, you know, somebody had said that Dark Waters had mentioned something about it, but I don't know if that's true. I don't know. What is MTG cards? No idea. Oh, Magic the Gathering. My buddy Ryan did, not Tremblay, the guy with the paranormal stuff, but the a buddy of mine used to be a hairstylist. He collected for a long time, and then he just up and sold it all and made a bunch of money. Dick Richards, I collect knives. Charles Henfield collects ammo. Great. Both of those are important. I stole $1,500 worth of high-low graphics and got stolen back by the owner. I don't know what that is. Halo graphics.
Holographic, like the cards that.
Oh,
have, like,
holographics.
Prismatic effects on them.
Yeah, he spelled it holographic.
I'm pretty sure he's making a joke about stealing from someone and then that person stole it back. Jason McFadden said, "What about the strangest cryptid, the ginger, my people?"
Oh, gosh. I'm not going to talk bad about people. Dick Richards says I got abducted back in 2010. All right, Dick. So you get to come on the show and talk about that. You can come on and talk about it. Do you think that some dogmen become man-eaters? Yeah, why not? It's their natural prey. Just to eat meat. Just reading through the comments, folks.
Random YouTube viewer asks, are some people more perceptive to paranormal activity than others?
Absolutely. Got sent a video by my buddy Stefan about a fireball landing in a Michigan lake. I watched the video. I listened to the commentary. My theory on that would be that it's probably a meteor, but there are fireballs that have appeared. I got a story not too long ago about a fireball that was seen inside someone's house that would move around independently, and it was like almost like an entity, but it was a fireball in the shape of a fireball. Oh, that might help.
You guys asked that question a few times now.
Moy Rick, yeah, Stephen Greer. He's in the CE5. He uses remote viewing to see ETs from different galaxies. He gets them to come to Earth during his CE5 events. He has a lot of evidence, pictures, and videos. I don't really have an opinion on that. I mean, like I said, remote viewing. I've had a couple remote viewers prove their talents to me by actually remote viewing some things I asked them to remote view, and they did it. And it was pretty telling. One was my Dogman experience, and they actually told me the color of the house. It's no longer there now. You can't look it up on Google Maps. It's gone. But it's pretty crazy stuff. April Fagan. Hi, Josh. Let me know when you're heading to Washington State. I can take you to a few places to find cryptids. I live close to the Canadian border, my friend. I'm surrounded by wilderness. I've been to Washington multiple times. I have no plans to ever go back to the Northwest the rest of my life. Just don't. Just too much stuff is going on over there all the time, and it's just not. It doesn't seem safe. Because if you know it, you know the area, you're from there, you live there, you're comfortable, that's fine. But for someone who's just going around, whatever. The last time I was there was just so much crap going on. I was just like, you know what? I'm done with the Northwest. I'm done with the West side of the United States. Period. I mean, I love a lot of the people. I love the country, that area. The last trip I took, year before last, we went to like 14 different states or something. It was great. We had a great time, but like I said, I think that's it for me. I'm never going back to California, Washington, or Oregon. I think I've done my last, unless there's something that calls me there for work, like maybe involving the show or involving the paranormal. Like if it's for something that has to be done, like business wise. I really don't have any plans to, but thank you for the offer. I think I'm going to stay in Texas and maybe go east if I have to. But northeast isn't going to be much better. So I like the story about the truck stop chicken fried steaks. Did I tell something about that?
Probably in one of the early episodes.
Well, if Scorpion is in the chat room, I watched Scorpion eat these trucker chicken fried steaks. One of them is this big, one piece. And the trucker chicken fried steak is two of those. So I watched him eat two trucker specials, which are 4 steaks this big. I believe they're 8 ounces each. And the trucker was a pound, so I guess there were 2 8-ounce steaks. So he ate 2 of those with the dinners, which is like 2 pounds of meat. And then he ate the mashed potatoes and the biscuits, which just sit on your stomach, and the gravy and the French fries and whatever else he had with it. It was unbelievable. And Chief, one of the people that comes on the show regularly, he was there one night, and we watched Scorpion eat one of those trucker specials in a bowl of chicken and dumplings that big. He can't eat like that anymore. Thank goodness. My nephew Zane and Anthony, they can still eat quite a bit, but not like they did when they were younger. When they were younger, they were bottomless pits. Mushu eats like a bird. I mean, he literally, and they say, well, eat like a bird. Birds eat their own weight and food all the time, whatever, but birds are this big, okay? He eats like these tiny little portions of food. He's just not an eater. Double A. I wouldn't want to be in the bathroom as that same bathroom as that dude. Probably not. Thank goodness I wasn't ever in the same bathroom with him after any of those forays to Dorset's, which is no longer there. Dorset's is now I believe it's Pinballs now. Pinballs, if you're ever in Austin, is a much better version of Main Event or Dave and Buster's. Dave and Buster's just has like games and stuff, but Pinballs has all that plus pinball machines, and then they have like mini bowling, but they have like a laser tag, and they have like this theater, interactive theater. It's a pretty cool place, and it's an Austin original, and there's 3 of them in the Austin area, and they're all very awesome, and they're surviving right now through the COVID. Let's hope that they continue to survive. It's a really fun place to go. Me and Nellie and the guys all like to go there. Jason McFadden, I collect muscle figures. Are you referring to the little pink guys, and then later on they came up with different colors, and they were called muscles? Because I used to have a bunch of those as a kid. Like one year they were really big, and my mom bought a bunch of them for me, and then.
There was someone who asked, can you dispel the notion that all spirits are evil?
I can say that that's absolutely true. I don't think all spirits are evil, just like I don't think all people are evil. Not all. People think animals are all good just because they're an animal. I've run across animals that were vindictive and mean spirited, just like people. Just like not all alien abductions are negative experiences. Not all hauntings are negative experiences. In fact, we were at Jack Anna's Kitchen the other day, which is a very good restaurant if you're ever in Austin. We were there with Anthony and your brother Adrian and my wife, and we were eating. And this guy was a waiter, and we started talking about what I do. And I told him I run a security company, but I also am into the paranormal. I have a podcast. He got really excited, and he told us a story about a house that he had bought. And there was a haunting that went on. It was a very obvious haunting. There was stuff that was really going on. He was traveling a lot, and his wife was having to deal with the haunting. But once he started being around more, he started to realize that she was being honest because stuff was happening while he was there. So that being said, he figured out that his house was haunted. But for 7 years, they lived in the house, and they got along very good with the ghost. And it actually, he believed, was a protective spirit. Isn't that what he said, Anthony?
Yeah.
Now, there's a flip side to that. My buddy Mike Tooley, we're going to, maybe in the middle of the week, folks, in one of these weeks, we're going to just drop a random episode. We're going to drop it as a bonus episode right in the middle of the week. And part of the episode is just going to be paranormal and some stuff that happened to Mike when he was younger. And then he kind of goes into a couple stories of stuff that we did when we were young guys working in government housing together. And so we'll get into that. And Mike can tell you his horrific story of when he house sat in a haunted house. Will you give me another question before we head out?
Have you ever had anything follow you home that was paranormal?
Something followed me from Chief's house, but I believe I took it back to him. There's a funny story about that, but also kind of creepy. He used to collect these Kachina dolls, and I think in one of the pictures we posted on the paranormal, I think it might be my fan page and maybe in the Paranormal Round Table group. There's a picture of me and him at the old studio, and he's holding a Kachina doll. And yeah, there was something that was there in that house where he lived. And then when I went back over to him and Loki's house, because they rented a house out in the country, out in Del Valley, I felt like something was in the truck with me, and I ordered it to stay there when I was leaving. And then a bunch of weird stuff started happening at their house. So we kind of got into that, you know. Yeah, I believe stuff followed me home from the building that I met, that me and Tony Duran on the episode we did, the Black Hounds of Taylor. We talk about a building that we both worked at that was haunted downtown. There was something that followed me home from that place. Anything else? Alejandro V, when is your next live? We do this every Tuesday. We're going to do Q&As every Tuesday. So yeah, that's when the next one's going to be. Have you heard of any Dogman or Bigfoot sightings in South Carolina? Absolutely. The Carolinas they got all kinds of stuff. Black cats, Bigfoot, Dogman. Shirley Torres, remember the bar you worked at where there was a critter having a Mortal Kombat fight with a rat? Yes, I do. And we talked about earlier in this live stream about the little creatures or whatever. There is some weird stuff downtown in those bars. Speaking of which, somebody had asked me. I mentioned something about drawing mice when I was a kid. I don't know what that was all about. I don't know. My grandmother used to do crossword puzzles, and I would draw little mice fighting in the boxes. I have no reason. Somebody, a fan, was asking me to comment on that. My wife even asked me about that too. I don't know what that is or why that is or what that was all about. But they were always like sword fighting. And so, speaking of mice or rats, whatever. Just to answer that person's question, I have no clue what that was about.
We have a guy, Jordy Zen, said, can any Christian say a prayer for me? I was just diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer.
Oh, no. Gordy, I believe, has been a long time listener to the show.
Oh, Jason McFadden is that guy who sent us some artwork recently. Sent us a picture of a rake and then another one of like a Dogman fighting with a Bigfoot.
Yeah, because folks, the contest we have is going on until the end of the month, and so far I've only got like 3 submissions. So, yeah, if anybody wants to send information,
Ghost Bunny asked, what do you think black-eyed kids are? Are they aliens or demons or what?
what is what was the question again? I was reading one right here. What is it?
What do you think the black-eyed kids are? Aliens, demons, whatever.
Uh, man, that's a hard one. I've vacillated back and forth between I've vacillated back and forth between what they could be and what they are. Black-eyed kids are a weird phenomena. I mean, you could make a case for them being some sort of demonic entity, but you could also make a case for them being alien. They do things that seem to be alien in nature, but also they do things that seem to be demonic, or they could be both. I mean, I don't know. I can't 100% say.
Another question is, what boxing gym did you used to train from?
South Austin Recreation Center, Montalbas Recreation Center, Pan Am Recreation Center, Lords. What was the other one? There were several back in the day that I used to box at. Boxing kind of faded a little bit in Austin after the advent of MMA. I was in the early stuff, the amateur stuff, back when there was no money in it. I mean, and I got over 300 pounds, and even, not being really heavy or fat. I mean, not being fat at one time. I was still like 300, like, well over. Like right now, I'm 340. And I mean, my wife took a picture of me. I think yesterday, the day before, I'm standing in front of a convenience store, and I was coming back to the truck, and she put the phone down, and took a picture of me. And you can see, that like I'm not just this big fat guy, but I weigh 340 pounds. I'm very dense. I'm a very heavy person. So it's kind of hard for me to get under 300. So yeah, but I always boxed. When I was a young guy, though, as a teenager, when I boxed back when Tony was boxing and stuff, and I boxed at like anywhere from 230 to 240. I was already that big, pretty big guy. And so that's going to be it, folks, for tonight. I'm going to go ahead and end this. I got a message from somebody who said that it said something about Marvin Allen being his friend. Chris Cyrus is his friend. Yeah, that's fine. I mean, I don't have a problem with Marvin Allen. Me and him squashed anything we had problems with. I have no problem with that guy. He explained himself, and he went. When we talked on the air live, he apologized and admitted to some of the things. At least that's more than for him. That's more than I could say for a lot of people that didn't, won't admit to anything they've done or say they're sorry. As far as Chris Cyrus being your friend, I'm going to repeat this, again. Chris Cyrus did a lot of messed up things to me and my people, and that included my wife, and had people attacking us relentlessly. So I keep getting messages about this, and people asking me about this. I've talked about it on Facebook, and I'm going to say it. This is what's happened. It's just the truth, And so there is no reconciliation or me being like, no, he's a good guy. I'm just going to forgive him, whatever. I forgave him, a long time ago. I just will never deal with him again. And the attacks continued for nonstop. So, and then he has done things to Ryan also, and that kind of rekindled some things, And if you choose to follow them, that's fine. Go ahead, watch their shows, be in their groups. I don't care. But I'm just saying, as for me and myself, I'm not ordering any of my listeners or followers to not listen to these people or not follow these people. I don't really care. It's your life. You do what you want. I'm explaining my side of the beef because they're going around telling people their side. So kind of feel obligated. We have to defend ourselves and tell you the truth. What's going on. That's all I wanted to, just to touch that. I got a message about that. I have no problem with what you do and who you're friends with. Me personally, I don't want to be associated with those people. And if I gave you the advice, I would tell you the same. because there are certain people in this field that are not trustworthy, and I believe that they will say things, do things that are not correct. So that's my whole deal. All right, guys, we're gonna call this a night. Hope you enjoyed it.